It's a children's birthday afternoon in the 60s, and Cooper was livening up the party while the women heard on TV about a nuclear war that was haunting the country. Bob Spencer then wanted to take a photo of Cooper with his wife, Mrs. Spencer, asking him to give her a thumbs up, but Cooper declined as this would not be appropriate in current times. Cooper later taught his daughter, little Jane, that the signal was to identify smoke from a nuclear bomb. While Cooper went to get her a piece of cake, bombs began to fall on the country. Cooper barely had time to grab his daughter and try to escape on horseback. Thus, 219 years later, the remaining humanity lived in underground refugees. Lucy went through an interview explaining her skills, which were many, to the council to be accepted into the annual Refuge Partner Exchange. The council, analyzing the devices on her arms, accepted Lucy for the exchange. Happy and wearing a wedding dress that had already been worn by several women from the refuge, Lucy would have a party and marry someone chosen from Refuge 32. Upon arriving at the gates, they met the supervisor of Vault 32, and Lucy met her future husband named Monty, who pleased Lucy with his appearance. At the wedding party, Lucy's father Hank explained that after 200 years, radiation levels on the surface were at acceptable levels, and Lucy and Monty's children would be the next generation to live on the surface. Everyone was excited about the news. A few moments later, the couple was already having fun in their new home inside Refuge 33, but at that moment, Norm, Lucy's brother, went to take a look at his brother-in-law's refuge and discovered that they lived in a place devastated and completely destroyed until he found a corpse on a chair. Lucy, noticing Monty's manners and the screams in the refuge, pointed her device at him, discovering that they were actually people from the surface who had invaded Refuge 32. Monty quickly attacked Lucy and knocked her down. With a knife he would try to kill the girl, however after he hit Lucy, piercing her stomach, Monty was distracted by the alarm and Lucy took the opportunity to attack him with a glass jar, knocking him down in the process. Lucy used a first aid kit and grabbed a tranquilizer dart gun. When she returned to the refuge, he saw that chaos had spread and several people had been killed by the invaders. She shot several of the invaders who crossed her path and managed to hide her brother, but Monty was still alive and tried to attack Lucy again, but her father appeared to save her and in a fight drowned Monty. But as soon as the two tried to leave from the refuge, the supervisor took her relatives hostage and Hank recognized the woman. It was Moldaver, a famous surface pirate. She told Hank to choose between his relatives or his daughter, and he chose to save Lucy. Placing her in a safe room, then her father was taken to the surface, which according to Moldaver was the real world, and as soon as they left they blew up the passage to Vault 33. After all the chaos, Lucy tended to her wounds and the remaining council held a meeting. Lucy wanted to go to the surface to find her father, but the council only wanted to prioritize maintaining safety. However, with the help of her cousin Chet and her brother Norm, they went to the outer door, and after saying goodbye to her brother, Lucy came out to the surface. She was shocked to discover that the world had become a devastated and destroyed place, but upon seeing the sea for the first time she went in search of her father. Meanwhile, Midshipman Maximus was beaten by the other recruits until an officer appeared. He and his friend Dane were part of the Brotherhood of Steel, whose job was to discover pre-war technology and accumulate weapons and ammunition. That afternoon, huge ships descended on the post with several T-60s, the elite soldiers of the Brotherhood's army. Later, Dane called Maximus to go to the workshop to see one of the soldiers being repaired and remembered the first time he saw a T-60 when he was a child. Officers appeared and called Dane to speak to the commander. Later, Maximus discovered that his friend had been chosen to be anointed and would be squire of a T-60. This angered Maximus, who put a razor in Dane's shoe. Consequently, he was taken away and forced to tell the truth. He spoke with Elder Clerc, the commander of the Brotherhood of Steel, and Max denied it until the last moment and stated that he was loyal to the Brotherhood, so Elder named him Squire of the Knight Titos, undergoing a ceremony and receiving the mission to find the target. Meanwhile, 3 surface pirates were after a mutant in a tomb. As soon as they removed and opened the coffin, the famous The Goal, who once was Cooper, was sleeping. The pirates were also after the same target as the Brotherhood of Steel, but they need his help to destroy the T-60. As the reward was high, he didn't want to share and finished off all the pirates in the blink of an eye. Going after the Brotherhood's target alone, the target was Dr. Siggy Wilzig, a government scientist who designed combat and tracking dogs. However, he felt sorry for sacrificing CX-404 and began to care for the dog, keeping her hidden. He was also working on a mysterious experiment and injected a substance into his own neck. One afternoon, while placing CX-404 in its hiding place, a scientist discovered it. They were to be delivered, but CX-404 attacked the scientist and killed him. With that, Dr. Siggy Wilzig and the dog had to flee the base, almost being killed by automatic weapons. Lucy wandered the post-apocalyptic world, observing abandoned houses and realizing that many had given up. At night she built a fire and was found by CX-404 and Dr. Siggy Wilzig, who saved her from a giant carnivorous cockroach. She said she was after Moldover, but the doctor just advised her to be careful about night dangers and left. In the morning, CX-404 brought him a piece of a human arm from inside a cave. Then Max and the Knight arrived in that cave, following the tracks of the doctor and his dog. The Knight treated the squire with disdain, and when the Knight went to check the cave, a mutated bear appeared and began attacking. The fear-ridden Knight even tried to escape, but he was being beaten by the creature and was only saved because Max intervened and shot the animal. So the Knight took off his helmet and explained what they did to bad and weak squires like Max and demanded that he get a stimpack to save his life. Max, remembering the day he met a T-60 and knowing that Tito's didn't deserve that armor, Max waited for the Knight to die and kept his armor. As soon as he entered it, super excited about the skills and strength that the armor gave him, he even broke up a random fight. Lucy found a very thirsty man who drank all her water supply, but explained about Phil the smuggler's city, where perhaps she would find the information she needed. Lucy then arrived at the fair on the outskirts of the city and finally entered Philly, where the ghoul was waiting for his target. Lucy then went into a store that had stolen Vault Tech equipment and asked about Moldover. Ma June said that place was not for refugio people, as they were rich people hiding in holes, and ordered Lucy to leave her store. At that moment, the ghoul saw Dr. Siggy Wilzig, knowing about the reward, announced to everyone that the money would be his. Even with Ma June trying to protect him, the ghoul shot the doctor's leg off. Now Ma June also offered a bounty on the ghoul's head, and with that a shootout began. However, the ghoul, being extremely skilled and as a bulletproof mutant, finished off the last opponents. Afterwards, the ghoul was going to shoot the doctor, but was attacked by CX-404, but he took a knife and attacked the dog. Lucy tried to intervene. First with persuasive words and then shooting a tranquilizer dart at the ghoul, but he was already under the influence of many drugs and the dart had no effect. He was then going to kill her too, but Max appeared, introducing himself as Tito's the Knight, trying to stop all that chaos. Even so, the ghoul shot, but Max had to save Lucy. After revealing his face to her, Max fought the ghoul. Meanwhile, Ma June provided a new leg for Dr. Siggy Wilzig, which after being placed was ready to be used, and Lucy discovered that Dr. Siggy Wilzig would be handed over to Moldover as it was very important. Lucy then agreed to take Dr. Siggy Wilzig to Moldover so she could find her father. Ma June gave Lucy the coordinates of the location. Meanwhile, Max fought hard, but still didn't completely master the armor, and the ghoul took advantage of this by cutting one of the armor's important wires. Max had to fly away to avoid dying, so the ghoul entered the store and saw that they had escaped. Now to locate Dr. Siggy Wilzig, the ghoul cured CX-404 with a stimpack and set off in search of the doctor. Hours later, Lucy and Dr. Siggy Wilzig stopped to rest. Lucy was confident that she would be able to move on, but Dr. Siggy Wilzig ended up taking poison and explained that Lucy needed to take his head off and take it to Moldover. Without hesitation, Lucy picked up the chainsaw and accomplished the task. In the past, Cooper was a great movie actor, and even though he acted, he didn't think it was cool to kill people. He was happy with Barbie Howard and his daughter Jane, who attended his recordings. Later, the ghoul found the doctor's body, and in order to survive as a mutant, who were known here as necrotics, he injected chemicals so his body wouldn't stop. Lucy was already carrying the doctor's head. At night she discovered that something on his neck was important, but she didn't care, as she really wanted to find her father. Max was already repairing the armor in the city of Philly and his officer asked him to report, so he replied that he had been attacked and that the squire had died, but there was no problem as they would send another, even though he asked not to and cut communications. He needed a peace in the city, but as soon as he returned, thieves tried to steal the armor. Without being inside it, he ended up getting beaten up by the thieves. But Max still went to fight even though he was weak. He managed to hit a few more with tools he found, but they placed him close to the armor, so he activated his arm and crushed one's head. Out of fear, the other ran away, and moments later the Brotherhood sent the squire to Deus, the boy who beat him when he was at the base. He couldn't kill him as he brought valuable information that more people were after the target with him. Lucy arrived at the edge of a lake and tried to feed a small deer, but soon heard growls. A creature dragged her, she threw it, and the monster took her backpack into the water. Before she could go in to retrieve it, she was surprised by the ghoul accompanied by CX-404, who wanted to know where the head was. She said she had lost it, then he realized that a glutton from that lake had caught it. In Vault 33, Norm was called by the council, and as punishment for helping his sister escape, he would be responsible for bringing food to the prisoners who survived from the surface. Later they held a meeting to decide what to do with the prisoners. The ideas were to rehabilitate them. Norm was the only one who wanted everyone killed since they were murderers. Everyone was against it, but after the meeting Stephanie, who lost an eye because of the invaders, agreed with him. Max continued his journey with his new squire, explaining that the target had escaped with a girl and he was only unable to catch her because of a necrotic. They followed the radiation trail until they found the body, so now they were also looking for the head to attract the glutton. The ghoul used Lucy as bait by hanging her on a cable until the glutton appeared. It worked out. The gigantic creature appeared wanting to devour Lucy, however the ghoul was unable to kill the monster and was thrown away. To avoid being devoured, Lucy threw the ghoul's bag into the creature's mouth and her drugs were bitten off. As soon as the creature was gone, the ghoul got super angry and decided to take Lucy hostage to get more. Shortly afterwards, Max and the squire arrived at the lake and the glutton was soon identified. Max didn't want to sacrifice the boy. Max shot to attract the creature, but his bullets ran out and the squire shot again, making the glutton go after him, but Max didn't let the monster devour the squire, pulling out the axe and making the creature vomit, saving the boy. Max found Lucy's boot and CX-404 found its owner's head, and so they were super happy, as they would complete the mission, but in the meantime, the ghoul took Lucy hostage and didn't even give the girl water, saying she would find out how. Here on the surface there wasn't much clean stuff for her to drink, and as soon as she saw the sign with the Voltec mascot she shot him in the head, because in the past it was through Cooper as a well-known and famous actor that they created the mascot with a thumbs-up sign, and he was eternalized. They arrived at an abandoned hospital where a certain Roger was screaming. He was another necrotic who without drugs was about to transform. Knowing he wouldn't survive, the ghoul shot Roger in the head to use his flesh for food. When Lucy said it was wrong, he handed her the knife to continue slicing the necrotic. Later, she found some water and even though it was contaminated, she drank it. The ghoul said that she would one day transform like him, she just needed time. She tried to run away, but was lassoed by the ghoul and Lucy bit off his finger, so the ghoul did the same by ripping her finger off and saying this was a fair trade. Afterwards, the ghoul took Lucy to an abandoned children's buffet and shortly after entering she passed out. There she was found by a flying android and the ghoul took Lucy to that place so that the android sewed her a new finger, which she thought was cool. However, she discovered that android planned to remove her organs by putting Lucy to sleep. As soon as he woke up he realized that they kept people and necrotics there and that this place was a center for exchanging organs for drugs. Those responsible for the site were watching TV and ordered the robot to continue with the extraction. When Lucy was taken to surgery, she managed to escape by kicking the blade and electrocuting the robot. She took the android hostage and threatened to throw acid at both of them. She wanted to go out and release the necrotics, but not all of them were normal. Some were crazy creatures that had already attacked the owners of the place and ended up killing themselves this time. All that was left was a necrotic woman named Marta who was fighting for consciousness and had to be killed by Lucy. As soon as she left, Lucy took the drugs that the ghoul needed, leaving the vials with him and leaving. At the base, Stephanie went to talk to her cousin Chet to leave her former husband's things with him, but in reality she wanted him to look like him to satisfy her longing for other things. However, her water broke at that moment. Afterwards, Norm talked to an intruder at the prison who said that the people living in Vault 32 were anything but innocent. Curious, he called his cousin Chet and they went to the refuge. When they entered, they realized that the place had been deplorable for a long time. Through a device on a resident's arm, they saw that something had happened more than 2 years ago and it appeared that they had killed themselves. As they entered the commander's cabin, Norm checked the records and it appeared that the refuge had been opened from the outside to the inside, but was shocked to see that his mother, who he believed to be dead, was responsible. As for the ghoul, as soon as he recovered, he entered the place and used all the medicine he had to stay conscious. He sat down on the TV where a film of his was playing, remembering the time when he was human. Max and his squire had fun, as they had accomplished their objective. Thaddeus asked to be marked as an official squire, and in his excitement Max revealed that he was the one wearing the armor. However, Thaddeus didn't like him and said that the Brotherhood would kill him for it. Trying to silence the boy, Max tried to attack Thaddeus and stepped on his foot. However, Thaddeus had the key and disabled the armor, taking the scientist's head and leaving with CX-404. Later, Max was surrounded by giant cockroaches who wanted to devour his flesh. Fortunately, Lucy appeared and shot and killed all the cockroaches, but Lucy was feeling ill, contaminated by radiation. Max said he would help her with the medicine, but she needed to get out of the armor. She helped him even after he lied about his name and soon after passed out. Max gave her the medicine, but after she woke up he hid the armor and went after the key to turn it back on. However, Lucy had a proposal. She would help recover the squire's stolen head in exchange for Max sending 3 or 4 T-60s to rescue his father, and they would be even. He agreed, and as they walked, Lucy shared that as a child she believed the sun was real because her mother made it seem real. Max said that the Brotherhood collected pre-war technology precisely to end wars, so they arrived at a bridge where they found a couple. When asked to raise their hands, they were met with gunfire. Max reacted quickly, neutralizing the threat despite being hit in the shoulder. They discovered that the shooters were infected cannibals called Fientes. Max then showed Lucy his old city destroyed by resource wars. Max's shoulder injury turns out to be more serious than he thought, leading them to an abandoned hospital. Lucy went in first, and when she followed, Max ended up trapped in an isolation chamber. At the refuge, Norm became suspicious of the administration after the recent election for supervisor. Betty Pearson from Vault 31 was elected with 98% of the votes, a suspiciously similar pattern to what occurred in Vault 32, and this made him even more suspicious. The next day, the new supervisor gave a speech announcing that they would rebuild Refuge 33 and that some people would be left in that refuge to live there. When they entered, Norm realized that they had already cleaned the place, painted the walls, and removed the bodies. Betty stated that it was all for the good of the 3 refugees. Lucy and Max woke up, but the place was familiar to Lucy, as it was inside a refuge. In the past, Cooper was the poster child for refugees, convincing the richest that this would be their new home, and the neighbors were scientists ready to build a better future if there was a nuclear war. But Cooper wanted to spend time with his wife, but she organized a farewell party for all Vault Tech customers at your home. It was at this time that they began using wrist protectors to measure radiation. One of his famous friends was paid a lot of money to keep quiet about what they were doing in the refuge. One afternoon, Cooper saw his wife with a Vault Tech wrist device. She said she was trying hard to get a place in a shelter, but Cooper said they were already rich and could buy a place. His wife, however, revealed that she wanted a place in a good refuge, meaning that there were bad refuges. Later, he went to a bar and talked to an actor friend. The friend said that Vault Tech was deceiving customers and that the refugees were a lie. The next day, he was talking to his wife about the rules of the refuge, and they ended up having an argument about it. And when Cooper went to visit the meeting of a group that was against the refuge, it was there that he met the famous Moldaver. Now waking up after a hangover from harsh chemicals and medicine, the ghoul was taken in by the police for destroying robots, and the cops claimed to work for the government. In Vault 4, they removed a bullet from Max's shoulder and treated a rotten tooth. Lucy talked to Bertie, the deputy supervisor of this refuge, who said they would stay there for a few more hours until they were sure they were not contaminated. Later at breakfast, Max told Lucy that it looked like a cult, but Lucy explained that it was like that at her house too. The supervisor came to talk to them. His name was Benjamin and he was a cyclops, and he noticed that others there had deformities as if they were mutants living inside a refuge. Lucy found this strange. When she went to talk to Benjamin, he said that each refuge was different. Refuge 4, for example, received people from the surface all the time, and going to level 12 was prohibited. He didn't want her to ask any more about it. Max already knew that his armor only needed a fusion reactor, so he went to see where the energy was coming from and finding the machine's power reactor. Before catching it, he was approached by Bertie, who gave him a wrist device and told him to enjoy the comfort of a hot shower, good food and an apartment of his own, which left him surprised when he tried caviar. The ghoul was taken to speak with the president of their government, Sorrel Booker, who was also a bounty hunter. He knew the ghoul very well, as the necrotic had been wandering this world for more than 200 years. However, as a mutant, the ghoul could recover body parts such as his finger, which he sewed there in front of him. He commented about the woman everyone was talking about, a certain Moldaver, and the president said she was a dangerous woman, so the ghoul provoked the president and the sheriff by calling them cowards just to disarm them. With the opportunity he had, he stole their weapons, killed them both, and then took Moldaver's portrait, saying he didn't remember her that way. Lucy was taken to a ritual where people stood around an altar, undressed, and used ashes and blood to revere Moldaver. This scared Lucy, who ran out to find Max. He was happy with the place and didn't want to leave now that he had a comfortable place. Lucy then decided to prove that this place was a lie by going to level 12. There they carried out experiments with creatures and humans, and she saw a video of a woman giving birth to several creatures that subsequently devoured her. Then he saw that the place was full of mutants that were kept in capsules. At that moment, a scientist entered and realized that there was someone inside. After grabbing a gun, he cornered Lucy and threw acid at him. However, she was captured by the guards and Bertie. Meanwhile, Max was enjoying TV and popcorn. In this destroyed future, there are lead collectors who look for the currency of this world, bottle caps. This pair of scavengers returned home and came across the ghoul, who took a letter from their brother with information about Moldaver. However, because he had killed his younger brother, the ghoul knew that his remaining brother would seek revenge. Without mercy, he killed him right there and left. Lucy was arrested, and the Vault 4 supervisor showed her a tape where two scientists were attacked by a wolverine, which was their experiment. Each refuge had its own experiment, but Lucy only knew that Refuge 33 grew corn. As she brought violence to Refuge 4, she would be punished and was taken away by two guards. They passed in front of Max's apartment, who noticed the situation and decided to save Lucy. Thaddeus was being followed by CX-404, which kept smelling him. In addition to a completely destroyed foot, he also had the scientist's head. So that the dog would no longer follow him, Thaddeus placed the dog inside a freezer and left, but it wasn't long before the ghoul appeared and saved the dog, and together they went after the head as well. Thaddeus was approached by a snake oil salesman who claimed to be a doctor and promised to cure his foot. However, he demanded payment and Thaddeus gave him the energy reactor. In return, the supposed doctor gave him a serum that cured his foot quickly. However, without Thaddeus knowing, the treatment turned him into a necrotic. Lucy's punishment would be banishment to the surface along with a box of supplies for 2 weeks. Max, believing they were going to kill her, went to the energy sector and stole the reactor by placing it in the T-60's armor. Max almost destroyed the entire place until Lucy stopped him. Together they went to the surface, then Lucy made him return the energy reactor to Vault 4, and as he realized that Lucy wanted him to live with her in her refuge, he confessed his real name, and she found his attitude courageous, and they left in search of the scientist's head. In Vault 33, surface invaders mysteriously began dying from rat poison. The supervisor wanted to catch the person responsible, but the election of who would have been transferred to other shelters took place. Norm was separated from his cousin to prevent them from investigating further into the refugees. Thaddeus went to an outpost where the owner had placed several traps. Moments later, Max and Lucy arrived and the boy was unable to land any shots. Then Thaddeus ended up stepping on a trap, leaving an arrow through his throat, but when he removed it he discovered that he had turned into a necrotic. At that moment the Brotherhood arrived in helicopters and if they discovered that Thaddeus was a necrotic he would be killed. Max had the idea of keeping the head of Dr. Siggy Wilzig, who was with Thaddeus, to help him escape and gave it to Lucy, who took the head of another dead person at the scene, kissed Lucy and said that as soon as if he escaped from the Brotherhood, he would find her in Vault 33. Already in the refuge, all the chosen ones were going to Refuge 32. Norm took the opportunity to send messages to Vault 31 saying he was the supervisor and managed to get into Vault 31. When he entered, Norm saw a small android with a human brain who tried to stop him from entering. However, as the android was too slow, Norm managed to get past him. Norm discovered that the people there were not born naturally. In fact, they were people from 200 years ago who were waiting in cryosomnia to recolonize the Earth in the future. And in the past, when Cooper began spying on his wife at Vault-Tec meetings, he discovered two shocking things. Hank was one of those who stayed asleep all this time, and it was Cooper's wife's idea to launch nuclear bombs all over the world so they could live in peace in the refuges. Max was taken to the Brotherhood base, and as he was lying about the head they were going to kill him, but Max said he could bring the real head. The leader then spared him, but he had to bring the right head and that would make him a true warrior. However, they would go heavily armed to Moldaver's refuge. Lucy finally arrived at the Moldaver base, where she lived in harmony with humans and necrotics. When he arrived at the leader's room, he found his father arrested. She handed the head to Moldaver, who then removed the device, but before Lucy could go she told the truth about her father, which left her quite shocked. Another truth was that Lucy's mother fled the refuge when she discovered that the outside world was habitable and safe. She discovered a prosperous town that was doing well and decided to take her children, but Hank went there, took her children and burned the whole town down so that there was nothing left. Sitting at that table was Lucy's mother, who was now a necrotic. The scientist had created a fusion chip with unlimited energy with which they could rebuild the world on the surface, but only Hank had the code, so Lucy forced him to give the code to Moldaver. As soon as she entered the code, the Brotherhood arrived to kill everyone and recover the artifact. Fighting the armors was difficult, but the ghoul was known to know how to kill them, as he knew a flaw. Shooting it easily killed the T-60 that were there. Hank was still trying to convince his daughter that everything was okay and that they were going home. At that moment Max arrived and released Lucy's father, but she told him that he was the one who destroyed his city. But Hank got into armor and knocked Max down, but Lucy pointed the gun at him and shot, hurting his face. The ghoul arrived next, as he knew Hank very well and wanted to know where his family was, but Hank quickly escaped. The ghoul made a proposition to Lucy to find out who started all this. Lucy killed her mother and decided to follow the ghoul. As soon as Max woke up, Moldaver turned on the reactor that was so powerful that it turned on all the city's power and then died. Dane arrived and thought Max had done it and would now become a knight. The ghoul, Lucy and CX-404 continued on their way and Hank had already arrived at the base town. And so ends the first season of Fallout, a science fiction series from 2024. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.